Welcome back. Hey, in a couple of videos that we've gone through already, we talked about the bell-shaped curve and why it's important to pay attention to that and how that relates to real estate. We've talked about how to judge where we are in a market cycle, and we've talked about financing and the financial aspect of buying a home. Let's talk about actually shopping. This is the fun stuff. Now, I've got one of the best jobs in the world. And the reason why I think it's one of the best jobs is because, a lot of people think of realtors as salespeople, and I don't think of myself as a salesperson. I'm really more of a coach or an educator, which is why I like doing what I'm doing here. I like to share this information because I think, first of all, I think it's lacking in the industry. And a lot of people, they're going out trying to buy a house without this information, and they might get hurt. Just met with a family last week who really felt like they didn't have any good information when they bought their house, and they really felt like they could have made a better choice. So hopefully I'm bringing some good value to you. I think it's good value, and the feedback that I get from my clients is that it's very valuable as well. But again, back to me having the greatest job in the world. I love this because I don't have to sell. Houses sell themselves. So we get out and we go shopping, and as we're shopping, we're going to go through, and if you're working with me, we're going to go through and be looking at different homes, and we're going to be looking at different aspects of the home. Again, you're going to fall in love with the house, and I may be your voice of reason. You may not like it, because what I'll do is I'll say, hey, wait a minute. I know the house is great. I know it looks wonderful. I know it's working really well for you guys, and you're really excited about it. I want to make sure that you consider this. I want to make sure that you're looking at the three most important aspects of real estate. The three most important parts of real estate are location, 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 right? So I want to make sure that you're looking at, wow, if you're really excited about this house that's on a busy street, well, that's something really to consider whether or not that's a purchase that is best for you. And it may be. My father-in-law bought a house on a very busy street, and funny story is he's deaf. So he's not totally deaf, but he's very hard of hearing. So I said, listen, Simon, this house is a great house. It's a wonderful home for you. It's on a cul-de-sac. It's a single story, all of the right things. Great area. It just happens to be on a busy street. Now, you've got concrete in the backyard, you've got a patio cover that comes to the block wall, and so every piece of sound comes and bounces around in that backyard. And he said, oh, it doesn't bother me. And I said, Simon, I understand. You're deaf, you just turned down your hearing aid, and you can enjoy the backyard, but anybody who has their full hearing is going to have a really hard time back there. So he ended up buying the house anyway because he felt it was good for him. Fast forward, the story a little bit later, he ended up putting somebody in that house as a renter, and that renter bought the house from him later. She did tell me one thing as she bought the home. She said, if I wasn't already living here, I wouldn't have bought the house, because I didn't want to move all of my things is the reason that I went through with the purchase, but I hate spending time in that backyard because it's so noisy. So anyway, I may be that voice of reason if you're working with me, and whatever realtor you work with should also be that voice of reason that says, hey, let's look at where you're at. Let's look at some of the condition of the home. So that might be another thing that you want to consider. You might be getting a good deal, and if it's a good enough deal and you have to do some work, well, let's take a look at the work that you have to do. So I just helped some friends buy a house, and we got a house that was in a great area, wonderful home, worked really well for them, and it needed a bit of work. It actually looked really rough around the edges. The carpet was horrible. The paint was in pretty bad shape. There were some things around the house that were pretty tough. But all in all, we took a couple of contractors and we realized that it was probably about $12,000 worth of work. Now, $12,000 worth of work may seem like a lot, but when you consider that they bought the house $50,000 under the market, so even after doing that $12,000 in work, they're still, what, $38,000 ahead. and the market is in an upward trend right now. So they did very, very well. And those are some things to consider. One of the things that helped them with that purchase is that they were buying a house that had bad carpet. The carpet needed to be replaced everywhere. Well, carpet's easy and inexpensive to pull out and of course replace. Had they wanted to go to wood floors, they could have done that, and still pulling out the carpet is pretty inexpensive. If it were all tile, well, now you're getting into some expensive things. You got to jackhammer tile up, and it's pretty expensive to try and demo that. And then of course it makes a mess and you can't live in that, and you know, it's a big crazy thing. So as you're thinking through these things, you want to consider, if I have one house, if I have two houses and they're pretty much the same, maybe they're the same deal, but I'm going to replace the flooring, well, try and consider what it's going to cost you to remove that flooring and replace the flooring that you want. Another thing to consider is what may be around the house. So you might be buying a house that's in a great area, everything's wonderful. This house happens to be backed up to maybe a supermarket. And supermarkets sometimes have access points to your backyard. You don't want to put your family in a position where somebody might be able to get into your house and maybe steal something, or worse. So anyway, these are all things to consider. And a lot of people, when you get really excited about a house, you're not thinking through that. So you really need a realtor who will care more about you than the money that they're making, and share that information with you and help you kind of, you know, get out of the buyer fog and look at some of the things you know, that are important, like location, maybe power lines, maybe the condition of the home. Hey, again, I've enjoyed the time. I know this was kind of a light video. Hopefully you found some value in it, and I know that if you take these principles and apply them, you will be positioning yourself to not only buy a house that will stand the test of time no matter how the market is, but you will also love the home you live in. Thanks a lot. Make it a great day.